It was close to midnight when the front door creaked open, a soft thud echoing as it shut behind her. Laura's voice followed almost instantly, a little too bright for the hour. "Hey babe, sorry I'm late. We lost track of time at the bar. You know how it is when the girls get going." I was in the kitchen, rinsing a mug I never even used. Just needed something to do with my hands. Her keys jingled against the entryway table like they always did, followed by the unmistakable rustle of her coat being tossed on the back of a chair again, like always. But something about tonight didn't feel normal. Her voice, her footsteps, even the way she walked into the apartment, it felt rehearsed. Smoothed over. Like someone practicing their lines and hoping no one asked too many follow-ups. "Had a good time?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual, though I knew I wasn't selling it. "Yeah," she said quickly, already halfway down the hall toward the bedroom. "We went to that new place, Loft 42. You know, the one with the overpriced cocktails and bathrooms that smell like eucalyptus." I didn't respond. I just nodded, watching the hallway where she disappeared. That's when I decided to head to the bathroom. Not for anything specific, I just needed to move. My thoughts had been trailing her movements all night. I'd noticed a pattern the last few weeks. Laura coming home late, going out more than usual, putting on perfume she hadn't touched in over a year. And not the light stuff either, the fancy one I got her for our anniversary. The kind that cost too much and lingered in the air long after she left the room. I tried to ignore the knot in my stomach. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe things were just off because we were both stressed. Life had its seasons and this one just happened to *CK. That's what I kept telling myself. But then I saw it. There, on the bathroom floor, just beside the base of the cabinet, a tiny gold hoop earring. Dainty. Shiny. Not at all familiar. I crouched down, picked it up gently between my fingers, and just stared at it. Laura didn't wear gold. That was one of those things I remembered because I used to get it wrong. The first year we dated, I bought her a gold bracelet for Christmas. She thanked me, smiled politely, and never wore it. A few weeks later, she explained she preferred silver, said gold clashed with her skin tone. I never made that mistake again. But here it was. A single gold earring sitting in our bathroom like it belonged there. My first thought was stupid. Maybe she bought it for herself. Maybe she was changing her style. But no. There was no other one. I checked the counter, the sink, even peeked inside the drawer. Just this one. Then I heard her voice. "Hey, you coming to bed?" I straightened up, earring still in my palm, and called back, "Hey, did you drop this?" There was a pause. Just a beat too long. Then her voice came again, light, dismissive. "Oh, that? No, that's probably Rachel's. She was using my dry shampoo before we left. Maybe it fell out then." "Huh," I muttered. I looked at the earring again. Rachel had short hair. Really short. Buzzed on one side, curled on the other. Never wore hoops. And definitely not the delicate kind you had to unclasp like this one. "Okay," I said anyway. I stepped into the bedroom. Laura was already half under the covers, scrolling through something on her phone, screen brightness turned all the way down. She glanced up and gave me a tired smile. "Long day." I nodded again. "You know Rachel's hair isn't long enough for earrings like this, right?" That made her pause. "What?" "The earring. You said it was Rachel's, but sheesh." She cut me off, setting her phone down. "Yeah, okay, maybe not Rachel's. One of the other girls, then." "I don't know, Derek. It's not a big deal. People lose stuff all the time." Her tone was sharp now. Defensive. And just like that, the subject was closed. She rolled over, her back to me, blanket pulled up to her shoulders. I stood there, still holding the earring, suddenly unsure if I wanted to keep asking questions. It wasn't the first time something didn't add up lately. Her yoga classes, for one. She never liked yoga, used to make fun of it, actually. Now she was suddenly obsessed. Twice a week, sometimes more, at weird hours. Her phone always on silent. Password changed. She'd started sleeping with it under her pillow like some kind of high school secret agent. A few days ago, I asked her if she wanted to go hiking this weekend, something we used to love doing together. She told me she was busy, that she had a thing for work, then backpedaled and said it was a friend's birthday. I didn't push. But I remembered. Every time the story changed, I took a mental note. Standing there with that earring in my hand, I realized something that scared me more than any gut feeling ever had. I didn't know who I was sleeping next to anymore. I went back to the bathroom, placed the earring on the edge of the sink, and stared at it. That little piece of metal, shiny and silent, was louder than anything Laura had said all night. It wasn't proof, not really. But it was enough. Enough to poke a hole in the version of reality I'd been clinging to. Enough to make me realize that the truth, whatever it was starting to surface, one small clue at a time. I turned off the light and shut the door behind me. But I didn't sleep. Not that night. Not with the earring sitting there like a quiet confession nobody wanted to say out loud. The next morning, Laura was already up when I opened my eyes. I could hear the hum of the hairdryer through the bathroom door, muffled but unmistakable. A glance at the clock told me it was barely 6:40 a.m., early even for her. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself that last night had been a fluke. That the earring meant nothing. That her dismissiveness wasn't a mask for something worse. But I wasn't buying it. Not anymore. By the time I got out of bed, she was in the kitchen, already dressed. Leggings, tank top, that same oversized hoodie she always wore when she went to yoga. Her hair was tied up in a bun, and she had her mat slung over her shoulder like it was part of her identity now. "Morning," she said, not looking up from her phone. "Hey," I replied, watching her as she scrolled. I poured myself a cup of coffee, letting the silence between us stretch just a little too long. She finally glanced up, flashing a quick smile. "Got a new instructor today. Early class." I nodded. "You've been going a lot lately." "It's helped with my anxiety," she said simply, like that explained everything. I wanted to ask more about the earring, about why her password had changed, about why I felt like I was talking to a version of Laura instead of the real thing. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead I said, "I thought you didn't like yoga." "I changed my mind," she said, grabbing her keys. I let her leave without pushing it further, but the second the door clicked shut, I was on my feet. I don't know what came over me, maybe it was desperation, maybe fear, but I found myself walking into the bathroom again, searching for anything else that felt off. The earring was gone. I checked the sink, the floor, even behind the trash can. Nothing. She must have taken it. And just like that, the physical proof, small as it was, vanished. I stood there for a minute, the silence almost mocking, and realized something that scared me even more than the earring itself. Laura was hiding things. Over the next few days, I became hyper-aware. Every shift in her tone, every vague explanation, every time she angled her phone away when I walked by, it all started to pile up. And it wasn't paranoia. It was instinct. Something fundamental between us had shifted, and no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, I couldn't unsee what was happening. Her phone was a fortress. Always face down. Always locked. If I even glanced at it, she'd casually scoop it up and hold it in her lap like it needed protection. I started keeping track, quietly, methodically. I took mental notes of everything she said every time her story changed. Tuesday, she was supposed to meet Kayla for drinks, but when I asked her about it the next morning, she said yoga had gone late. I asked, "Weren't you with Kayla?" She blinked, then nodded slowly. "Right, yeah, Kayla came to yoga too." Her voice was cool. Too cool. I checked Kayla's Instagram. No photos. No check-ins. Nothing about yoga. I didn't say anything. Not yet. But I started writing it down. Dates, times, inconsistencies. I didn't want to play detective in my own home, but it was like every time I tried to believe her, she handed me another reason not to. A few nights later, she got a call around 9 p.m. We were sitting on the couch, a show playing on the TV that neither of us was really watching. Her phone buzzed once, then again. She glanced at it, her whole body tensing. Without saying anything, she got up and walked to the kitchen. She answered quietly, back turned to me. I could barely make out her words. "No, not now, yeah, tomorrow." "I know, but he's here." "Okay, fine." When she came back, I tried to act normal. "Everything okay?" She gave me that smile again. The one that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Yeah, just Kayla. Girl drama." "Of course." Kayla again. The human scapegoat. That night, after she fell asleep, I sat on the edge of the bed and just stared at the wall, numb. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to be the guy who checked his girlfriend's location or scrolled through her texts while she slept. But here I was. I picked up her phone. Still locked. Still a new password I didn't know. I put it down. The next day, I tried a different approach. I asked her if she wanted to plan a weekend trip, just the two of us. Something simple. A drive upstate. Maybe a cabin or a bed and breakfast. We used to do that kind of thing all the time. She hesitated. "I don't know. Work's kind of busy right now." "Come on," I said. "We haven't had a weekend away in months." "I'll think about it," she said, which meant no. Later that evening, I found myself driving to a coffee shop near her supposed yoga studio. I knew her class was scheduled to end around 7:15. I parked across the street and waited, feeling ridiculous. Desperate. Like I didn't even recognize myself anymore. At 7:18, people started coming out. Women in leggings, chatting and laughing. I looked for Laura. She wasn't there. I waited 10 more minutes. Still no sign. Eventually, I left. I didn't go home right away. I drove around for a bit, aimless. trying to decide what to do with what I now knew or thought I knew. It was one thing to suspect. It was another to confirm. I wasn't ready. Not yet. That night, I didn't sleep much. I kept staring at the ceiling, her soft breathing beside me somehow louder than ever. It was surreal, laying next to someone you used to know like the back of your hand and now feeling like you had no idea what they were thinking, where they went when they left, or who they were when you weren't looking. I didn't say anything the next morning, or the morning after that, but the silence between us kept growing. Not loud or dramatic, just slow and steady, like a leak in the roof you don't notice until the whole ceiling caves in. And part of me kept wondering if maybe, just maybe, I was wrong. But another part of me already knew the version of Laura I loved, she wasn't here anymore. It was a Thursday afternoon when everything came crashing down. The day had started like any other, gray, lukewarm, unremarkable. I was working remotely, parked at a small co-working space I used whenever the walls of our apartment felt too close. It was a quiet place, exposed brick, indie music playing low, the occasional clack of a keyboard cutting through the silence. Nothing dramatic. Nothing to prepare me for what was coming. I wasn't even thinking about Laura at that moment. Not actively, at least. Her absence had become background noise, something constant but quiet, like the hum of a refrigerator you stop noticing after a while. She told me she had a late meeting, something about client deliverables and a possible promotion. I didn't press. I didn't ask questions anymore. I was too tired of being lied to. Around 3:30, I stepped out to get another coffee. My eyes were heavy and I hoped a walk to the attached cafe would help. The co-working space was split in two workspaces on one side, a wide corridor of glass leading to the cafe on the other. It was designed to feel open, transparent. Ironic, really. As I walked into the cafe, I heard laughter, familiar, warm, and unmistakably hers. Laura. I stopped. There she was, just on the other side of the glass wall that divided the cafe from the seating lounge. Her back was to me at first, head tilted slightly, like she was mid-laugh. She looked happy. Not just amused, not just smiling out of politeness. Genuinely happy. And then she turned her head. I froze. She was sitting with a man I didn't recognize. Tall, tan blazer, confident posture. The kind of guy who looked like he knew what he was doing at all times. His arm rested comfortably along the back of her seat. Too close. They were leaning toward each other like there was no one else in the world. I didn't move. Couldn't. My coffee cup hung loosely from my hand. The people around me walked past, completely unaware that my world had just tipped on its axis. They talked for a while, him saying something that made her laugh again, her hand brushing his wrist in that absent, familiar way I hadn't seen in months. It was like I was watching a different life, hers, unfold behind glass. And then I heard it. Not clearly, but enough. She said his name, Jason, and something about how she never expected to feel this fulfilled again. Fulfilled? That word hit harder than anything else she could have said. There was no hiding now. No more rationalizing or hoping or pretending maybe this was all in my head. There she was, not just cheating on me, but happy about it. Comfortable. Confident enough to sit in a public space with him, feet away from the hallway where I worked every other Thursday. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. I turned slowly, careful not to let the coffee slip from my grip, and walked back the way I came. Each step felt heavy, disconnected from my body. I sat back at my desk, staring at the screen like it meant something, like the numbers and emails in front of me could explain what I'd just seen. But there was nothing left to explain. It was all right there, behind glass. I thought about walking back in. About confronting her. Saying her name loudly, watching her eyes widen, seeing Jason fumble for an explanation that didn't exist. But that would have made it about them, about their discomfort, their guilt. This wasn't about them. This was about me. About clarity. So I sat there for a while, just breathing. Letting the truth settle in like dust. There was no more room for denial. No more hoping she'd come clean or admit to something small I could learn to forgive. This was big. Permanent. Intentional. And worst of all, it had been going on for a while. Because people don't get that comfortable, that casual, in a matter of weeks. No, this had depth. Inside jokes. Shared memories. Probably a rhythm of hotel rooms, little secrets, morning texts I'd mistaken for work emails. I thought about the earring again. The fake yoga sessions. The way she never let her phone out of her sight anymore. It all clicked. It had always clicked. I'd just been too afraid to admit what I already knew. Eventually, I stood up. My coffee still untouched, my body operating on autopilot. I packed my bag slowly, deliberately, and left without a word. I didn't need to see how the rest of their conversation played out. I didn't need to hear her laugh again or pretend it didn't sound like betrayal. By the time I got to my car, I felt hollow. I sat behind the wheel, hands resting in my lap, not even starting the engine. The city buzzed around me, traffic, sirens, a guy shouting into his phone on the sidewalk. All of it distant, like I was underwater. I thought about driving home. About waiting for her to return, acting like nothing happened just to see how long she'd keep up the lie. But that wasn't me. I didn't have the stomach for games. I started the car and pulled into traffic, the weight of what I'd seen pressing into my chest like a stone. When I got home, everything looked exactly the same. Her jacket was still draped over the kitchen chair. Her slippers sat by the door. The scent of her perfume, something floral, expensive, still lingered in the hallway. But it all felt like a set. A stage for a life that didn't exist anymore. I didn't cry. I didn't scream or punch a wall or break a glass. I just stood in the middle of the living room and felt everything shift. The idea of us evaporated. The photos on the mantle, the notes she used to leave me on the fridge, the inside jokes, we weren't those people anymore. She wasn't my person. She'd given the piece of herself to someone else. Freely. Willingly. And now she could have the rest of her things, too. I didn't move for a long time. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. Just the low hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the building settling. I stood in the living room like a guest in my own space, surrounded by pieces of a life that no longer made sense. The throw pillows she insisted we buy during a fall sale. The scented candles on the windowsill, half-burned and labeled with names like Sunday Morning and Fresh Linen. Even the coffee table books she never read but liked to display for company, they all stared back at me like props in a life we weren't living anymore. I walked into the bedroom and opened the closet. Her side was packed tight, as always. Neatly arranged sweaters, rows of shoes, the silk robe she'd hang on the hook behind the door. Everything in its place. But it didn't feel like hers anymore. It didn't feel like ours. It felt like inventory. I didn't think. I just moved. The first box I grabbed came from the hallway closet where we stored holiday decorations and old electronics. I emptied it onto the floor without a second thought. Ornaments rolled across the carpet, wires tangled in a sad heap. I didn't stop to sort them. That wasn't the priority now. I started with her coats, folded each one neatly and placed them in the box. Then her scarves, her favorite pair of winter boots. I moved methodically, almost clinically. There was no music, no dramatics. Just silence and the sound of cardboard shifting under the weight of goodbye. In the bathroom, I gathered her makeup, her skincare routines, the drawer full of hair ties and samples from beauty boxes. I packed them all carefully. I didn't want to damage anything. I wasn't angry in that way. This wasn't about revenge. This was about clarity. Closure. When I reached the vanity, I paused. Her perfume bottle sat there, square, elegant, almost empty. The same scent she'd worn the night she met Jason, I was sure of it now. I lifted it, turning the glass in my hands, then set it gently in the center of the box. Books came next. The poetry collections she bought but never read. The thrillers she breezed through on vacations. Her notebooks filled with half-finished journal entries and to-do lists. I packed them all. Then came the sentimental stuff, the framed photos of us on the beach, at weddings, at that wine-tasting trip in Napa where she got a little too tipsy and knocked over a whole flight of reds. The memory used to make me laugh. Now it just made my throat tighten. I wrapped the photo frames in newspaper and lined them along the bottom of the next box. I didn't stop until close to 2 a.m. By then, I had filled 5 boxes, each labeled with her name, marked by room. Bedroom. Bathroom. Living room. Kitchen. Miscellaneous. The last box was the hardest. It held the little things. A mug she loved with a chipped lip she refused to throw out. A scarf I'd given her our first Christmas together. A ticket stub from a concert we attended when we were still new, still curious about each other's tastes and stories. I stared at that ticket stub for a long time. I almost kept it. Almost. But then I remembered her laugh through the glass wall. The way she leaned into Jason like I hadn't existed in her world for a long, long time. The stub went in the box. I stacked everything near the front door and took a picture of the arrangement. Then I emailed her. Subject, your things. Body. I've packed your belongings. They'll be delivered to your new address. Signature required. Please don't return here. This chapter is closed. D. I didn't wait for a response. I scheduled a courier for noon the next day. Signature required. No exceptions. I slept for 3 hours maybe. The kind of sleep where you're aware of every minute passing. When I woke up, the sun was coming through the blinds, but it didn't bring warmth. Just light. I made coffee. Drank it alone at the table. Her mug wasn't in the cabinet anymore. By 11:45, the courier arrived, a middle-aged guy with a clipboard and a tired smile. He didn't ask questions. Just took the boxes, scanned the labels, and loaded them into the back of the van. She'll need to sign, I reminded him. He nodded. No problem. As he drove away, a strange stillness filled the apartment. Not an emptiness, exactly, just a pause. Like the moment between one breath and the next. I walked through the rooms again, slower this time. It was incredible how much space she'd taken up without me realizing it. Even after packing her things, there were shadows of her everywhere. The indent on the couch cushion where she'd sit with her laptop. The faint smudge of lipstick on the hallway mirror. The indentation on the rug where her yoga mat used to rest, even though we both knew she hadn't been doing yoga at all. I stood in the doorway of the bedroom and stared at the side of the bed she used to sleep on. Half of it was mine now. I didn't know what came next. I didn't have a plan. I just knew that whatever future was waiting for me, it couldn't include her lies. Her excuses. Her ability to smile at me in the morning and meet another man in the afternoon. I cleaned the day, not out of obligation, but necessity. Stripped the bed. Washed the sheets. Threw open the windows. I wanted the air to change. I needed the smell of lavender and betrayal to vanish from the walls. I even rearranged the furniture a little. Moved the armchair to the other corner of the room. Shifted the coffee table slightly to the left. Small changes, but they felt like reclamation. I didn't cry. Not then. The tears had come before, in the confusion, the gaslighting, the nights I'd laid awake wondering if I was imagining things. I had already mourned the version of her I thought I loved. This part wasn't mourning. It was cleansing. By nightfall, the apartment felt unfamiliar, but in a good way. Like a space that had been purged of something toxic. I ordered takeout and ate it on the floor, legs crossed like I used to in college, before us became a concept. Her silence was louder than I expected. No texts. No calls. No apologies. Maybe she got the message. Maybe Jason was distraction enough. But deep down I knew something else was coming. People like Laura don't like to be erased quietly. They need to be seen. They need to rewrite the ending. I wasn't going to let her. Not this time. It started the next morning. I was sipping black coffee, no sugar, no cream, when the first message came in. Laura. Really? This is how you handle things? I stared at the screen for a few seconds before locking the phone again. I wasn't surprised. If anything, I had expected it sooner. She must have received the boxes by now, unsealed the lids, and realized I wasn't playing a role anymore. I wasn't interested in arguments, clarifications, or rewrites of the story she'd been spinning for weeks. 10 minutes later, another text. Laura. You didn't even talk to me, Derek. You just threw everything away. You think you know the whole story, but you don't. Another sip of coffee. She wasn't going to apologize. That much was clear. There were no acknowledgments of what she'd done, just a shift in narrative. I was the one acting cold. I was the one who had jumped to conclusions. I sat there, phone buzzing on the table, and watched the emotional manipulation unfold in real time. Laura. I told you things were hard. But you shut down. You always shut down when things get uncomfortable. You think packing boxes and hiring a delivery guy makes you strong? It makes you a coward. You didn't even ask me why. You just decided. Who does that? Each message came like a jab, carefully worded to twist guilt into a we*p*n. She wasn't confronting her betrayal, she was reframing the entire story. Now somehow she was the victim, and I was the one who had failed. I didn't reply. That seemed to infuriate her more. Laura. You're really just going to ghost me like this? After everything? After 5 years? Say something. Be a man and talk to me. But silence was my choice now. Not a retreat, but a shield. By noon, the tone shifted again. Laura. I didn't want to hurt you, Derek. I was confused. Things weren't supposed to go that far. I thought maybe there was something missing between us, something I couldn't name. But I didn't plan it this way. He just made me feel seen. And you were so distant lately. I didn't know how to reach you. I'm not blaming you. I'm just trying to explain how this happened. I sat on the edge of the couch, reading those words over and over. The implication was subtle but clear. I was unfaithful, but it's because you stopped being enough. It was a version of accountability that did everything but actually accept fault. Still, I said nothing. That night, my phone lit up again. Laura. I don't want to lose you. I know I messed up. But don't we at least owe it to ourselves to talk face to face? I stared at her contact name for a long time. Laura Yellowheart. I hadn't changed it since we first moved in together. I remember the moment I added the heart, stupidly optimistic, like a teenager who thought love was a permanent state of being. I deleted the emoji, then the contact altogether. Her text still came in, but now only as a number. That felt right. The next morning, a different strategy. She started sending messages that read like diary entries. Laura, I stayed up all night crying. I can't sleep. I don't even know how to function without you. I didn't expect you to disappear like this. I know I hurt you, but this silence is **ing me. Please, Derek. Say something. Anything. Her guilt was performing now. Every message was dripping in wounded vulnerability. But I couldn't forget what I'd seen, her laughing across from Jason, her hand brushing his like I didn't exist. I remembered the look in her eyes. Not guilt, not hesitation. Joy. She had chosen someone else. And now that I had chosen myself, she was unraveling. I didn't respond. That weekend she emailed me. Subject, closure. Body. I don't know if you're reading this. I just needed to write it. I feel like everything I knew is slipping through my hands. I hate that it got to this point. I hate myself for the decisions I made. But I also know that we weren't okay. You know we weren't. Maybe you think that justifies nothing, and maybe it doesn't. But I wish you had let me explain. I wish you had stayed long enough to yell, to cry, to react. Anything. The silence feels worse than if you'd screamed in my face. I keep thinking about how you packed my things. That you labeled each box. That you made sure it all got to me safely. That hurt the most because it meant you had already made peace with letting go. Please just let me know if there's any part of you that hasn't. I closed the email. Deleted it. Trash emptied. On Sunday, the calls began. Blocked numbers. Unknown numbers. Voicemails I refused to check. I recognized the spiral, her attempt to control the narrative slipping away. The same person who had gone weeks lying to my face was now demanding I give her the opportunity to fix what she'd so casually broken. But there was no fixing this. There was only surviving it. I spent that Sunday doing laundry, reading, listening to old records we used to play together. At first, I hesitated to put them on, worried they'd be too loaded with memories, but I realized the music wasn't hers. It wasn't ours. It was mine. I had shared it with her, not the other way around. I played an old jazz album I used to love. The needle crackled on the opening track, and for the first time in weeks, I let myself exhale. That night, I changed the lock on the front door. I wasn't sure she'd try to come back, but I didn't want to find out. It felt symbolic, maybe. Or just practical. Either way, when the new lock clicked into place, I felt something shift in my chest. Something small. But solid. Like resolve. The following day, the messages slowed. 2 more texts. Then none. No emails. No missed calls. Just quiet. And in that quiet, I realized I hadn't just taken control of the situation, I had taken control of my own peace. Let her spin whatever story she needed to soothe her guilt. Let her cry into Jason's shoulder or scream at the void for a reaction. I was done playing a role in her drama. I wasn't her closure. I wasn't her lesson. I was simply gone. It was quiet for 4 days. Then the voice notes started. She must have realized texts weren't working. Her new angle was sincerity, spoken, trembling, painfully human. The first one came at 11:43 p.m. when most people are half asleep and their defenses are lowest. I didn't listen right away. I just stared at the notification, voice message from Laura. After about an hour, I hit play. Hey. I don't know why I'm doing this. Maybe I just need to hear myself say it out loud. I know you're hurting and I know I caused that. And I also know I don't deserve your time or forgiveness. But I keep thinking about all the quiet little things we used to share. And I'm scared. I'm scared I ruined the only real thing I ever had. She paused, then whispered, I miss you. Another came the next day. I need you to understand something. My parents, they've always pushed me to be with someone more stable. Someone with money, a career path, a blueprint. They thought Jason checked those boxes. I didn't even realize I was listening to them until I was already slipping away from you. But it wasn't all them. That part's on me. She sniffled, her voice breaking. You were my home. I didn't know how much until you locked the door. I listened to all 3 notes. Then I deleted them. She wasn't lying, not entirely. But she was trying to rewrite the ending again, slipping in external blame where there should have been none. Jason wasn't a family preference. He was her decision. Over and over. I didn't reply. And that silence finally held. The next morning, I woke up to birdsong and no messages. No guilt. No grief. Just light through the blinds and the smell of fresh coffee. For the first time in months, the silence didn't feel like a weight. It felt like clarity. It felt like space I didn't need to explain or defend. I made breakfast for one. Took a long walk. Read a book that had been gathering dust on the shelf for a year. Every small thing felt like a declaration, I'm still here. Somewhere along the way, I stopped checking my phone. Stopped expecting the other shoe to drop. It occurred to me, standing on my balcony with a mug in my hand, that someone who leaves without hesitation has already made their choice. They may regret it. They may want it back. But they made it. And that choice? It doesn't require a response. I didn't just let go of Laura. I let go of the version of myself who needed her validation, her attention, her apologies. I reclaimed the silence. Not as absence, but as peace. And in that stillness I found something I hadn't felt in a long time. Myself.